Alright guys, welcome to the Slava review. The long-awaited ship, the long-awaited battleship finally makes it to the game. If you saw my first impressions of this ship, you'll know that I've had pretty mixed feelings about it. I'm not really sure where to put it, or I haven't been. Whether it's by far the best battleship, or if it's just kind of a mediocre ship that's really good in very niche circumstances. And today I kind of want to address that and kind of have some more thoughts on it after getting some more experience with this ship. And this is my best game I've had so far in it, the one you're seeing right now. It's a long video, but the reason for that is I wanted to show almost all of the shots that I've taken with this ship in good games. So games where I feel like I've aimed well, games where I feel like most of the time aimed well, I guess, and games where I've had either been pushing, or I'm holding a side, or I'm kiting away from a side. So different scenarios, different circumstances. I kind of want to give you an idea of what this ship is like in those circumstances. And I don't want to just tell you what it's like. I want you to see for yourself what it's like, and then make a decision based on that if you want to grind for this ship and buy it. It is effectively the same price as the Ohio is, so the natural comparison is going to be, should I get the Slava or should I get the Ohio? And I'm not going to make that decision for you, but for me personally, I would want both. Both are really good, and it's a tough decision between them. As far as Slava's concerned, this is why you're getting it. You're getting it for the guns. That's why I've got so many clips of just shot after shot after shot. I want you to get a good feel for what the guns are like, and not just cherry-picked, oh, it's an overpowered ship because I had 10 devastating strikes in 40 games or something like that, or I don't know however many games, whatever, 100 games, something like that. And I don't want to just show you that, but I also don't want to say, oh, it's underpowered by just showing when it's weak. It's a good ship. It just and it has its strengths and weaknesses. Its massive strength is being able to shoot very quickly to long range and deal consistent damage. The guns are, again, 406mm guns, and they're good. They have amazing penetration and amazing shell speed and amazing dispersion. That's what you get. That's the pros of this ship. The cons would be slower turret traverse, the AP Alpha only being 12,100, which pales in comparison to even the Montana AP Alpha, which is around 13,500, I believe. It's a noticeable drop off when you land full pens or over pens. It feels weak when you only get a few full pens or a few over pens. This ship, it requires getting a Citadel to feel like a tier 10 battleship. You have a long reload. I think it's somewhere in that 32 and a 33 second range. I'm taking range mod, not reload, as you can see. I'll get into that in a little bit. So there you can see pretty good damage there when we get a Citadel, but without Citadels, you'll notice sometimes you'll get a good hit for 20k, but oftentimes, unless you get a Citadel, you're dealing less than 15,000 damage per salvo, which isn't amazing, and that's on broadside ships. If things are even slightly angled, I've noticed that this ship likes to bounce a lot. It doesn't have improved pen angles at all, so it's not like this is a 406mm Stalingrad or something like that. It doesn't feel like that at all, where Stalingrad's able to just magically pen through very, very sharply angled armor. This ship can't. It'll bounce a lot. But when things are broadside, like these last couple ships have been, things are nice. Things are really nice. You don't get Citadels all the time, but it is more consistent than other battleships. And it has to be, due to that poor alpha damage. Now, not every salvo is it going to be amazing like there. I may have overled that slightly, but sometimes it just misses the Citadel. And other times it very much hits the Citadel. So it's not a guaranteed Citadel. I wouldn't say that at all. Like that, a flat broadside, no problem. And yet we still don't do much damage. And then one salvo later, suddenly we just hit him for half his remaining health. You know, it's a good battleship at punishing broadsides, assuming you can aim well and you get a little bit lucky. Less lucky than other battleships, so the RNG is not quite as bad with this ship, which is nice, and that's the main reason I like it so much. It just is a comfortable battleship to play. If you enjoy slowly pushing aside like I am here and dealing with broadside ships really well, you're gonna like this ship. You can't push super hard, but you can push harder than like a Thunderer can or Conqueror can. Your armor is pretty decent, and of course, as we'll see in a little bit, Kuznetsov really saves your bacon. That free damage control, heal, and worse dispersion for incoming shells is insane. It truly is. And I'll talk a bit more about strategies I use to get the most out of Kuznetsov when we get to that point. But survivability isn't really that big of an issue with this ship. Sure, it has a weak bow. Sure, it has 32mm deck armor, 25mm bow. But I've found that if you stay at a more broadside angle, people tend to shoot your broadside armor instead of your nose. At least right now. Because the ship's new, maybe people learn to just shoot at the nose in the future, but I've found I can bait people pretty well into shooting the broadside armor. Now, that broadside armor isn't Kremlin levels. You only get 350mm of belt armor, where Kremlin gets 410 at its weakest point. And so you can't quite be as broadside as Kremlin can, but it's angled really, really well, just like the Kremlin armor is, so you kind of can be a little bit trolly with the way it bounces shells when it seemingly shouldn't. Yeah, and the nice thing that this ship gets that the Kremlin doesn't get is a standard damage control. Depends how you're playing, but the Kremlin damage controls can run out in a game, and then you're kind of screwed. Whereas this one, you just kind of always get it after your 60 to 80 seconds, depending on the modules and upgrades you take. It's nice to have a standard damage control. I like Kremlins, but it's kind of a niche damage control, whereas the standard one I think is just kind of better in more circumstances. The other thing I should talk about with this ship is it's got really good AA. I would say it's got the best anti-aircraft in the game as far as battleships go. You get long range out to 6.6 kilometers, which almost no other battleships get. I mean, unless they're Russian, because for some reason Russian ships get the long range AA still. And of course it has huge DPM and lots of flak puffs. It does good damage. That said, by yourself, you're still going to die to CVs, especially the new Richthofen. I've been playing this ship, and that Richthofen can very easily Citadel you, so with its AP bombers. So be careful of that. If that ship's in the game, or even a Hakuryu, you'll really want to stick with your team. But as you can see, we kind of shred this Lexington's planes. He only really gets a couple torps off, and his whole squad's dead, which is kind of rare. It's really rare to shoot down a squad before the drop. He only got 2 torps off out of the 3 that he normally puts out. So, pretty good AA, but not amazing, because no AA is amazing. So, that's kind of the main things with this ship. You get some trade-offs on the guns to get that insane dispersion and shell velocity, but I think they're worth it. The guns on this ship are, I would probably put them as best battleship guns in the game. but that's only when you're in random battles, okay? So in random battles, you get a lot of people who just don't angle to you. They go broadside, they aren't respecting your guns enough or anything. They just sail broadside. And that's what this ship preys on. It preys on bad players. If you angle to this ship, assuming you have 30 millimeters of armor or more, you're going to bounce these shells every time. And this ship will do negligible damage. It's got a long reload then. This ship just preys on bad players. And I think that's the best part about this ship. If you play smart in your cruiser or battleship, this ship deals very little damage to you. But if you play dumb, this ship can kill you in one shot. And that's what I love about it. It adds skill to the game. It forces people to learn to play better. And for that reason, I love this ship. I love that it's in the game. I think it's perfect for the game. I think perhaps giving people a little bit more time to angle would be good, so reducing the shell speed. That's probably how I would have gone about nerfing it instead of the alpha damage. I would have kept the 13,500 alpha of like a Montana, say, but then given it slow shell speeds like a North Carolina. Give it North Carolina shell speed with this insane dispersion, and then, you know, it requires a lot of skill to aim this ship then, but then if you catch someone broadside, that skill is rewarded. So that's kind of how I would have nerf/buffed this ship. But in its current state, I think it's fine. The problem is when you compare it to an Ohio, I don't think this ship ever is as fun as an Ohio. Even in a game like this where you do 260,000 damage so far, it's never as fun, for me at least, as the Ohio is. That ship is just, when it's on, oh my goodness, that ship is so fun. But the nice part about this ship is you're never reaching those low valleys that the Ohio gets. Sometimes you just die and there's nothing you can do in the Ohio. Whereas this ship, you can kite away and you're really strong at range and you're able to do some stuff. So that's kind of how I would describe it. This is a more consistent ship, whereas Ohio's got more of those peaks and valleys where you're having a ton more fun or a ton less fun. That's kind of the difference between them. People have been saying that the dispersion is worse at close range than it is at long range, and that's not true. The dispersion does get better at close range. It just doesn't get as much better compared to the other battleships. So sometimes this happens. Your dispersion is the worst at close range out of all of the battleships. But it's the best at long range. So it's kind of this weird, if you plot it as a linear line on a graph for dispersion over range, let's say, the Slava would have a pretty flat line that slowly gets more accurate as you get closer, whereas all the other battleships have steeper lines where they're much more accurate at close range and far more inaccurate at long range. And that's kind of what you see when you're up close with people. Is the dispersion's not amazing at close range, but it's good enough that you can do some really good damage with it. Yeah, I think it's a worthy ship to get. I don't think it's brokenly overpowered. I was playing it today on stream and people were constantly complaining about it in chat. That may be because I was running it with two friends of mine, who one of them also had a Slava and the other one was running a Stalingrad. I think that's the new funnest div I can ever play right now, because we all just kind of spread out to different corners of the map and just get broadsides when people angle to our teammates. It's great. You force people to consider cross map shots, which is nice. So yeah, this was a really good game. Nearly 300k. Pretty solid. I've only played I think 30 games in this ship so far, so pretty good. So yeah, here's an example. Like I was saying, we're playing it in a Slava Stalingrad div. and we're actually splitting, as you can see. My two div mates are going around the C flank, and I'm gonna just stay here at A. And the reason for that is, you see how much range I have. I can cross map to the guys north of C, and that's what I'm gonna try and do. Is when these ships like a Shikishima decide to angle in or angle away from my div mates down at the south of C, or D. Sorry, it's D. I can just get these flat broadsides and hopefully deal damage. Not always, as you can see. Again, I'm trying to show you a lot of different perspectives for what these guns are like at long range, close range, broadsides, angled ships, that kind of thing. So as you can see, the dispersion at range is pretty nice. So if you know how to aim, you're generally going to get some pretty solid damage. And well, sometimes you just don't quite aim it right, or the dispersion just goes a bit low or just a little bit high at these long ranges. But it's still good. And we're gonna see here that my team is pushing them out of the decap, and they're gonna be forced up around into their spawn. And this is perfect for me because now they're just broadside to me. So you can kind of just see how I like to position this ship. I want to be on people's flanks. I want to get these broadsides. Otherwise, because stuff like that happens, you just get a broadside cruiser that's basically a free kill. And it helps your team push that side even more, which forces them back even more, into your shells more. Like, it's just a good thing to split up and crossfire the map like this. So I could get rushed here. I could get focused by the carrier here, but I'm full health still, and I have pretty good AA. So I'm assuming that the carrier is not really going to want to go after me. And since they really only have 2 destroyers, and they're both kind of low and on the other side of the map, I feel pretty safe about just staying here. As you can see, carrier comes in to strike us, but rockets aren't going to deal that much damage, and there you go. A Citadel on a Kremlin outside 20 kilometers, which is pretty rare, but that's just how powerful these guns are. You can Citadel... I've Citadeled battleships out to the maximum 28 kilometer range before. And that's what I love about this ship, is the consistency is better than other battleships. It's not perfect, but it's better than other battleships, and that's why it's more relaxing for me to play. It's just that you're not having to deal with bad dispersion as much. You're not having to deal with high explosive spam as much because you're sitting at the back, right? You can deal that massive damage from the back. And that might not be the best for the game, but that's kind of how this game has transitioned. We've got ships like Smolensk, Worcester, Colbert to a certain extent, Harugamo, Grozovoy, Kleber, Marceau, all these ships with high DPM, high fire chance, and pretty long range for this caliber of their guns. It forces you to play farther back. Sometimes you just can't push in a battleship, and that's what this ship is made for. I think this ship is perfect for the meta of World of Warships right now. I don't like that meta. As you can see from my other videos, I prefer a secondary brawling battleship like Pommern, Kurfürst, Ohio. I like that playstyle more. But as far as the meta is concerned, this is perfect for it. And like, we're shooting outside 25 kilometers at Yamato's, Shikishima's, Kremlins, and dealing massive damage to them. And of course, cruisers fit in that category as well. You know, nice little 10,000 damage chunk. So yeah, I like this ship a lot. It forces enemy ships to respect your guns. It forces the enemy ships to angle into you, or they take damage. And that's what I like. I like consistency. Now, the problems with this ship are definitely the armor, and the caliber of their guns. You'll see coming up that I actually, sometimes these games just turn into blowouts, and there's nothing I can do about it, because My armor isn't quite sufficient enough to hold off a massive push by the enemy team, and the gun caliber doesn't overmatch much, so if enemy teams just angle bow into you and charge you, you'll just end up dying. Or just forced to give up so much ground that you're all stuck in the corner of the map. And that's not fun. Which doesn't happen often, but steamrolls do happen with this ship. So I should probably talk about my build a little bit. I think that a tank build is pretty standard for this ship. You're going to want concealment, because your concealment gets down to 13.2 kilometers, which is amazing for a ship this size with guns like this. Maybe 2 concealed, but concealment expert's nice. Fire prevention is a must, because people are going to love to spam high explosive at your ship, since you're not exactly capable of shattering a lot of HE. There's a nice dispersion salvo there, and we actually don't kill him. We only do 6,000 damage there. Look at that. So it's scenarios like that that make me think this ship isn't overpowered. It's just good. It's just a good ship. So yeah, fire prevention, superintendent, because you only get 3 heals base. So you're going to want to get that extra 4th heal for sure. And then basics of survivability is a really good pickup. And you probably want expert marksman, although I'm not really taking that because I have this ship for Kremlin and Stalingrad as well. So I don't know, I'm kind of used to slow guns with my playing Yamato all the time. But here that was a decent game. It wasn't the best game in the world, and that's kind of what's been happening. My streams kind of noticed that when I play Slava, it's about 120,000 damage is what I get, and that's it. There's a few outliers lower and a few outliers higher, but my average is somewhere around that 120,000 damage. And I think that's pretty solid, but considering my next closest battleship is a Montana at 133,000 average damage, and they just keep going up from there, that's kind of why I don't think this ship is overpowered. Now you might say that I'm just playing it poorly, or maybe I've just kind of lost my touch with the game, but I don't think so. I think that this ship struggles sometimes in games, and here's a good example of a game where we struggle. There's only 3 of us on this flank. The Smolensk is shooting the Kerr first instead of the Harigumo in his face that's killing the destroyer. So this one's looking rough, honestly. I'm already thinking, okay, I gotta get out of here, and as you can see, we're turning out. We get some broadsides, which is nice. And as you can see, we just deal nice, consistent damage to broadsides. When I see a Kerr first like this, I'm thinking, yeah, it's probably 20 to 25k damage. And there it is. Sorry, I have to get a drink of water there. And again, he's broadside, but he's angling in, so we're probably going to get less damage. And as you can see, he's at around a 45-degree angle, and we only get 10,000 this time, with a lot of shatters and bounces. So if you angle to... It sounds weird, but just angling to this ship, even if you don't have all your armor able to bounce these shells, it works wonders, honestly. The ship feels so weak when everything is angled to you. And here I just have to run. There's literally nothing I can do. We've lost this side of the map. My team is all on the 1-2 line, not pushing, so all I can do is stall as long as I can. But even that, I'm not going to be able to do very well because, well, I'm kind of giving broadside to a Yamato in Montana right now to try and shoot at this Smolensk, and it's not going to work out. In fact, we even miss him. So, as you can see, taking huge hits from their battleships due to being broadside to some and having 25 millimeters that they overmatch. So, this ship, when it gets caught out like this, it dies. You can see our potential damage going up, 2 million right now. It can tank for a while, but it doesn't tank very well. It's no Kremlin, that's for sure. As you can see, dispersion's still nice at long range. You can pretty reliably hit things, and That's one of the reasons I take range mod, is that I can hit carriers. I love shooting at carriers in this thing at long range. I haven't dev struck one yet, but I really, really want to because it certainly has the capability to do that. As you can see, I'm not just running away in a straight line. I'm weaving back and forth to try and dodge these high explosive shells. So you can get some, you can get some pretty high potential damage, but here, as you can see, Kuznetsov really just saves my bacon because gives me a repair, a damage control, and it makes I don't know why this talent activates in the way it does, but it allows, or it makes enemy dispersion like 5% worse or something like that, which is hilarious. So here I should have died to this Yamato salvo. Somehow we lived. So sometimes stuff like that happens. This Holland really should have been shooting at the Harugamo, but Midway finishes them off, and now we should actually be able to go dark, assuming we don't get lit on fire here. And there it is. So we got another heal up, our last heal, and that's kind of how you gotta tank with this ship. You're kind of riding a fine line until Kuznetsov hits. He activates at 10% of your health remaining, so on this ship it's 9,100 damage, or HP left, which is not a lot. It's kind of hard to activate his talent and not die at the same time in this thing, because it's so big and it's so vulnerable to a lot of incoming fire. So that's why I usually try. I didn't have the opportunity in this game, but if I have one heal remaining on my ship and we're getting close to where Kuznetsov will activate, then I'll save that heal until Kuznetsov activates, and then I have one massive heal because the heals will stack, and that will help keep me alive longer. Because I'll heal up to around 30,000 HP or something like that from 9,000, somewhere in there. Actually, no, it'd be more like 25 to 28, somewhere in there, which is a really solid heal when you're that low on HP. As you can see, angled battleship, not dealing much damage to it. So this ship really needs broadsides, and that's what I'm trying to. That's why this video is a long time, and I'm probably rambling, and it's not the most coherent thing in the world, but I really, really want to show that this ship is not brokenly overpowered. It's a good ship, and it's amazing against broadsides, but you angle a little bit to this thing, and all that power just seems to go away. Because, yeah, I don't want the community to just blindly hate a ship because, oh, it's Russian, and in testing its earlier version was so brokenly overpowered. And to be fair, it probably was. The videos I saw, I never actually played the original Slava, but this iteration is not overpowered. It's just good at punishing bad players. That's what it is. So this Yamato didn't angle, and there's a Citadel. So that's kind of where I stand on this ship. It's just good at punishing bad players. It's not overpowered by any means. Like, we have 109,000 damage. That's low for a battleship. See? There you go in chat. The Slava needs to go away. And yet, I have 109,000 damage, and I'm basically dead. A lot of my other battleships would have done more than that. A Conqueror or a Thunderer spamming high explosive would have done way more damage to that push than this ship did. But, yeah, the public's perception, the community's perception of this ship is that it's overpowered, and I don't think it is. I really don't. It's good, but it's not overpowered. I would be saying that Conqueror, and I would say probably Thunder, is more overpowered if you just shoot HE out of it. I think that is a more overpowered ship than this one is. So, yeah, I think this was a decent game of showing kind of the weaknesses of this ship. You saw how much damage we take when the shells land. The enemy team just missed me a lot. That's why I was able to get up to 300,000 potential damage. But, yeah, nice little parting salvo there for, again, around that 10, 11,000 damage on a somewhat broadside Republic. So that's kind of what you can expect when you shoot these guns if you don't get a Citadel on a broadside. I think it's 10 to 20,000 in there, sometimes less, unless you get Citadels, really. So not an amazing game. We tried to hold our flank, but, you know, sometimes you just have those games where you lose. And there's nothing you can do about it. Alright, now in this last little bit, these are just some clips. I didn't really want to show the full games. These are just clips of good shots, bad shots, just kind of just the salvos. There you can see what you can do against someone who just sails broadside. It's pretty satisfying, honestly. Being able to know that you probably are going to Citadel someone who goes broadside if you aim well. Not necessarily, again, but I like this ship. I think in closing, this last little bit here, it's a great ship, honestly. I am really happy I spent the time to grind out the Research Bureau to get this ship. Not that I like the Research Bureau, but the time spent was worth it, I think, to get this ship. Not overpowered, but nice. It's a nice ship to just be able to relax with. This will be the last kind of somewhat of a game that I show. And it's basically just going to be each salvo I took this game. I just want you to see on kind of an average-ish game in this one what the salvos look like. You know, the dispersion's nice, but not amazing there. And we end up with no damage because we just hit his turrets. That's why we got 2 full pens with no damage. You just hit the turrets. Broadside Kerr first. We're going to deal some pretty solid damage to him. It's a good ship, but not an overpowered one. I know I've said that a lot, but I really want to make sure anybody who watches this video knows that it's not overpowered. It's just good. And I think the problem is people don't like the potential to be killed in one shot if they play poorly. I understand that to a certain extent, but if you're playing poorly and you get killed in one shot, instead of complaining about the ship, maybe think about not just sailing broadside to a battleship. In this game, we've kind of been conditioned that, oh yeah, if we sail broadside to a battleship, it'll probably be fine, it'll probably be okay. Smolensk comes to mind when thinking about that. That ship just allows you to sail broadside to a battleship. Even this one just overpens Smolensk's. I don't think I've ever Citadel to Smolensk with this ship yet. And I've seen them quite a lot, and it's sad to me that instead of thinking, hey, that ship is accurate and strong and punishes bad play, but if I angle to it, I can mitigate the damage. And potentially even take no damage if I angle correctly or I maneuver a bit, you know. But if you go broadside to it, that's a misplay, right? Isn't it? It should be a misplay to go broadside to an enemy battleship, and shouldn't you get punished for that? Especially at closer ranges, maybe at long range. That's why I said earlier the shell speed should maybe be a bit slower, but it's stuff like this: a CV. Flat broadside, 12 kilometers away, and all we get are 7 overpins. And perhaps I aimed a little bit high there. But my div mate just shot him as well, and he also only got overpins. We actually looked at the end of the game at how many shell hits it took to kill this tier 8 carrier at close range from 2 battleships, and it took 38 hits to kill this guy between 2 Slavas at close range. So it's like we get a few full pens, sure, and we deal some damage, but it takes so many hits to kill some of these ships. And this is what Wargaming are adding. They're adding ships that just can sail around and do whatever they want to, and they don't take damage when really they should. And it's disappointing because the Slava is, in some ways, really, really good game design. and should be where the game is going, where you get punished for playing poorly and you get rewarded for playing well. But it just feels like that's just not the way Wargaming wants this game to be. They just kind of want it to be random stuff happens and you sail around and do whatever you want to and you get away with it and it's fine. So again, right around that 120,000 damage mark, it's pretty average for me. It's not insane. You can see I hit him 18 times and so did my div mate. Yeah, Slava's a good ship. I think it's worth getting. I would personally get Ohio first and then Slava, just because I enjoy Ohio more, but I do realize that Slava is definitely the more meta battleship now, and if you're looking for something to just kind of relax and play, the Slava is going to be way better for you. So hopefully that helped you guys learn a little bit about this ship and how it has been for me. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good day.